One of your leadership laws is keep it simple. That resonated with me because I call simple a superpower. I think a leader who uses simple words, concise, clear explanations stands a much better chance of motivating teams, galvanizing teams around a common mission. But I'd like to hear from your perspective. Let's break it down. What do you mean by keep it simple? What does that mean from a military perspective and what you saw on the battlefield and how it applies to corporate leaders?
Well, two components. The one that you already mentioned, and I know it's your specialty, is communication. And yes, 100%, you have to communicate in a simple, clear, concise manner that the team understands. If the team doesn't understand the words that you're using or the way you are phrasing things, they are not going to be able to execute. So communication has to be simple, clear, and concise.
Easier said than done.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have to come up with a plan that is a simple plan. The more complexities we add into a plan, the greater chance there is for failure. This is especially true in combat, but it's true in any organization. The more maneuvers we have to make, the more communication that a plan requires, the more points of failure there are, the better chance there is of complete and total failure. So we always want to pick the simplest course of action that we possibly can. And look, are there some times we're working a project that is large and complex and there's no way around it? Of course. We work with aerospace companies. Yeah. And they've got to take these extremely complex plans and break them down into simple sections that everyone can understand and execute.
Most people still have a lot of difficulty understanding what it means to break things down into their simple parts. Do you have any good tips on how best to take complex initiative, complex ideas, and keep them simple? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, you can do some pretty straightforward things like, hey, I'm going to give myself 5 bullet points to explain this plan. If I can't explain it in 5 bullet points, I've got to break it up into 2 separate iterative steps that we're going to go through. So there's a simple thing that you can do. Say, okay, I've got to brief my team.
Yep.
I'm going to give myself not 7-sentence bullet points either. I mean 1 sentence, 1 phrase bullet points. You give yourself 5 of them and you say, I'm going to be able to explain this plan in 5 simple bullet points. You put yourself some constraints on yourself. It's going to force you to simplify things, and it's a very effective way to do it.
I noticed that in your writing and in your speaking, you break things up into 3s. You typically have like 3 important leadership traits or 3 goals. Is that something that comes from leadership training? You don't say there's 18 outcomes from this masterclass. There's 3. Where does that come from? That has to be either conscious or intentional in some way. Getting back to what we're saying, 3 or 5 bullet points.
There's a saying in the SEAL teams that the subordinates would sometimes tell the leadership, and that is, hey, boss, I can remember 3 things. You better make sure you know which 3 things you want me to remember. So we're going out on an operation. If you tell me 18 things, I'm not going to remember them. You can tell me 3 things. Those are the things I am going to remember. And this is probably why I generally put things into bullet points of 3, if I can.